Hello everybody and welcome to Ives Kitchen Table, a very exciting episode for me today. My name is Olga Miller and you might have heard from me usually over podcasts here at Ives Kitchen Table and today in flesh, blood and voice and image. And it is a very special edition of Ives Kitchen Table because I'm here with Skylar Weiss, actually celebrating that Alpian has received the banking license. And so we're going to have a little bit of a chat what that means. And most importantly for all of you to get to know who Skylar is. Who is that guy that is building the next digital private bank for Switzerland? Stay tuned.
Ives Kitchen Table, der Podcast für ein reiches Leben. Präsentiert von Alpian iVest.
Roman told us that this should be personal. Skylar, who is Skylar?
Well, I'm a father, first and foremost, so a husband and a father. I've got one little son and another daughter on the way, so that's very exciting. A 2-year-old son named Art and a wife named Kirsten, so I'm very lucky to have a nice family. I'm a professional, so I've been in the industry for quite some time, in the financial services industry, first in New York, and then coming here to Switzerland and working at Rail at first, and then starting Alpian. For the things, I don't do many things, but for the things I do, it's just passion that drives me, right? So whether it's Alpian, whether it's being a father, whether it's sport, or reading or whatever it is, like if it's something that I key in on, passion is what drives me. So right now, I've got 2 main passions, one being Alpian and one being my family.
Okay.
Not in the other order, right? Family first. So.
Family first. Okay, and you mentioned sports. Do you do any fun sport?
Yeah, I cycle to work every day, so that's something that's fun. I've played squash for a very long time, which is a great sport. Golf a bit, even though I'm not so good, all right? And I think that everybody who golfs with me can attest to the fact that I'm a work in progress on that, and so, those are the main sports I'm doing right now.
And how long have you been here in Switzerland by now?
Been in Switzerland for 5 years.
Do you like it?
I love it.
You love it?
Yeah.
What do you like the most?
Again, I think, there's many things to like. I think one of the key things that I've come to appreciate that I didn't have where I was in New York that I have here is you have energy in the city, and I think the energy that I found in Switzerland. So first in Lausanne, then in Geneva, it's a great energy, but it's a sustainable energy, one that I think I'm very comfortable with, and so I would say that's key. It's also I love nature. I love having a view of the Alps and the lakes. That is just not something you get really anywhere in the world, where you've just got the combination of this geography, which puts you at peace, right? When you're outside and you're walking around, it's just, it's an amazing feeling.
Actually, Alpian, the name, has a very distinct history, right? And that you should be the person to tell me more about it, because it has to do with your grandfather, etc. So I'm very curious. What's the story there behind the name?
Yeah, look, I think when we were coming up with the name for Alpian, it was originally titled Project Blanche. That was the internal name, which, again, it doesn't mean anything, right? Project Blanche was just somebody came up with it and said, okay, we title it that. And, I think it's when you come up with the name of a company, it's very important that it means something to you, right? That it actually stands for something. And we looked through, I don't know how many different names, and none of them really fit the kind of purpose that Alpian is, right? What do we stand for? And then I went to the United States where I grew up. And this was in 2019, the end of 2019, and I met my grandfather, who's still alive. He's in his mid-90s now, and he grew up in Geneva, and he told me a story about how he got lost as a pilot while he was flying around, and he used the mountains to find his way back to Geneva. And I thought, the Alps, that's a perfect representation of what Alpian is to be. When I think about what do the Alps stand for, they stand for solidity, right? They stand for not just Switzerland, but it is inherent to Switzerland. I know the Alps are in other countries, but it's It's a big part of Switzerland's identity. It stands for enjoyment, but it stands for a beacon, right? And for my grandfather, it was the beacon that brought him home. That's what Alpion wants to stand for. We want to be a beacon for our clients to help them get to where they want to go. And so, when my grandpa told me the story, I just said these things are the same. And then I knew that the name had to be tied to the Alps. So that's how Alpion came to be.
So here we are, and then luckily the name also was available and it could all be engineered, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's, we were lucky that there's not a trademark on the name and the name hadn't been used before. The name Alpion was waiting for our company to come along to be, to come and fit it, so.
It's actually a very exciting story and a very touching one, because I think I was joking today, if we had briefed a marketing agency to come up with this, maybe it wouldn't have even emerged.
I don't know, they tried. No, when we worked with, again, when you come to a stalemate and you're trying to think like, what is the name? We were working at Rail at the time, and I think the team at Rail said, well, look, we've worked with a branding agency. They've done a good job in the past. Maybe we should try them. And we did, and the names just didn't fit. They weren't the right fit for us. And, so we got all these names, and we were saying, like, they're just not the right fit. And so we just kept going at it. We kept thinking, and then it just clicked. And for me, it was like love at first sight. Right? Name just fit what the intention, what the purpose of Alpion is. And when you search for a name for 6 months, and then you come on it, you just know it's right? And that's what happened with Alpion.
It is very exciting. Now you are a US person here in Switzerland, building a new bank. How did it all came about? Like, at the very first starting point, I understand you've been here before, right? Working. Why all in a sudden this idea of hopping on such an adventure?
Growing up, my grandfather told me stories of Switzerland. He told me of his love for Switzerland. And, and I had been to Switzerland before, but never lived in Switzerland. So I said, look, this is an opportunity to do it. And it was actually my MBA degree that took me to Switzerland. I studied at IMD in Lausanne. That was the start of my adventure. I was working at Morgan Stanley, a great company, great career, but I wanted to try something different. IMD offered me that opportunity to not just pursue my MBA, but to do it in a place that is part of my heritage, and so I took it. Right? I mean, it's just something that I've always had a deep appreciation for Switzerland, but now I could take that appreciation and that ethnicity and live it, right? And be part of that, be part of the country. And so, I'm very fortunate. I think everybody here at Alpion is very fortunate to be now building a bank. One of the industries that Switzerland is known for, building a bank in Switzerland, right? Really, not just being a citizen of Switzerland, but also a resident of Switzerland, but being a part of the fabric of what makes Switzerland so magnificent. So what gets you out of bed every morning? My son. My son. He totally gets me out. I mean, every morning, it's dad, and I love it. It's the best alarm clock you can have. So when you're building a company, it's tough to do both, right? It's tough to be a great father and be building a company, but I'm very fortunate to have very blessed to have a very great wife who supports me along the way, and she's very successful in her career, and now we're trying to find that balance where she's able to focus on her career, I'm able to focus on my career, but make sure that our son is able to benefit from having two parents who love him and who give him all of the attention that he needs. So how does a normal day in your life actually look like right now? Yeah. After the human alarm clock, the very cute one. It depends on the day. No day's the same, and that's great. Right? Every day's a challenge. Every day's a little bit different. Some days you have to make choices that are not great choices. Right? Do I stay and finish my work at 11 p.m., which means my son is asleep? Or do I go home and see him, put him to bed, and then continue my work at home? And work-life balance is important, right? And it's something that we value at Alpian. And so I think I have to combine the style that I found at Morgan Stanley in New York with the reality here in Switzerland. And at the end of the day, we're trying to do great things for our clients. Right? We're trying to build something great for our client, and that takes work. When you take the equation, I'm trying to optimize for Alpian, optimize for my son, and then where you have to give. If you can take 2 but not 3, I give for Alpian, I give for my son, and then I have to kind of suffer for that. So, the third is I take the bullet. So.
Okay, and are you a person that likes to optimize? Sounds a little bit from it.
Yeah, I love to optimize. I mean, again, it's not optimized for myself, but optimized for what you're doing, right? Like when I think about Alpian, I want to make sure that every client gets the full of what Alpian has to offer, right? I want to make sure that every client not gets a good service, but gets the best service. I know that there's a lot of work for us to do, and we'll probably never be perfect, but we need to leverage those imperfections to get to being perfect, right? Understand where you're not perfect, and then figure out how can you become more closer to perfect, right? And so that the client feels that, right? I want the client to feel that we're looking to give them the best service possible. And then for my son, again, I don't think any parent wants to compromise on, the upbringing and the safety and health of their kids, right? And so it's something that's constantly on my mind is, how am I impacting him, and can I think optimize is the wrong word for being a parent, but how can I make sure that I give him the education, right, the learnings that I've had in life? And it takes time, and I have to give him that time, and I love it when I get the chance to do that. So.
Yeah, as a parent, I can appreciate that in the same way, like when you carry deep passion for your work to the extent where it's almost. Does it feel like work, Alpian, to you? Does it? No. Right.
No. I mean, I love it coming in every day. There's clear difference between, when it's felt like work and when it doesn't. And at Alpian, I mean, there are things I don't like to do that I have to do. Right. Every day, there are certain elements of the job that nobody really wants to do, but that need to be done because that's what creates the best company. But even despite those things, I love every day. Right? I wake up every day excited to do, whether it's Monday or Friday, it doesn't really matter. It's just something I love to do.
From these 2 years of story of Alpian so far, what are the 3 things that you feel most proud about personally, that you think, yes, looking back, seriously, I thought it might not be possible, but actually it was?
I think, one of the things I'm most proud of is something that we haven't even completed yet, right? Which is a lot of banks, when they create their team, they create it primarily only from people who have worked in banks in the past, right? And one of the major challenges that we had at Alpian in the beginning was that, we hired a lot of people from the best banks out there, right? Great banks. But we also hired other people from the best companies out there that are not banks, right? A lot of creative companies, technology companies, consulting companies. And then when you bring them together, you see that the banking world and the non-banking world are not really, they don't work the same way, right? And if you just combine them, it's like, you can get a little bit of testiness, right? And it's really important to harness that difference, because if you just follow what the bankers say, you create the bank that exists today. But if you just follow the people who are non-bankers, you don't create a bank, right? And so you need to harness that discord to create a bank, but a bank that's unlike any other, something that's secure, something that that people trust, but also something that people love. Right? And if you're able to harness the energies and the experiences from both, you can make that happen. And so at first you see and you're kind of like, oh no, what did I do? Right? There's these really bright, really smart, really accomplished people who are not gelling right now. But then, if you handle it in the right way, and if you encourage, openness of communication, and you keep pushing people to go in that direction, we're not there yet, right? We're not perfect yet, but we're also much further along than where we were at the start. And so what I'm proud to say is, like, we've created a bank that is secure, that I believe people will have no problem trusting, but that they will love, right? And we've started from a base that's unlike any other, right? And that has been, I think, one of the challenges, but also one of the things that I've loved to see is that evolution of the company. I could go into two others, but I think that was a long enough answer for that.
So let me pick up on one thing you said, right? We know that the net promoter score of Swiss banks is roughly minus 26%. So I don't know how much love there is for the banks, in all honesty. But what do you think will make people love Alpion? What is the magic sauce?
The very foundation of Alpion is not built around the bank, it's built around the client. Right? So a lot of the times, we look at regulation, right? A lot of banks are people who are bankers, they complain about regulation. But I think that's the wrong way to look at it, right? When we look at regulation, we don't even just read the words that are written, we read the spirit of what the regulation is, because a lot of regulation is meant to actually protect the client, right, and make sure that the client is always the first priority of the bank. But that's how we think from the base, right? And this is like core to Alpion. Is how can we create a great client experience while respecting, their needs, their wishes, and their security, right? The security of their financial wealth. I think it's much easier for people to identify with and appreciate a service that's built for them than one that is, not built specifically for the client, but it's been built either over many years or with a different target in mind.
And how, in this interesting combination of the banking people and the non-banking experts at Alpion, do you ensure that somehow people get this, exactly what you just said, right? That it's not just about, we are client-centric, like I've been in banks for the bigger part of my career, and it always was called client-centricity, but somehow it felt more like a buzzword than a real thing. How do you, from your position, ensure that actually the rest of the troops kind of inherits the spirit?
Sure. I think that's my main responsibility, right, is to make sure that everybody is consistent with who we are. I mean, if you hire from a bank, you may have to kind of bring that person out of the mindset they were in and into the mindset that we are, which is not to say that you're not going to be employed by a bank, because Alpion is a bank now. But you need to shift the mindset away from your previous objectives, incentives, whatever you want to call it, and focus on what we are appreciating here. And it's my job to iterate, reiterate that again. It's something that's required at Alpion, right? I mean, if you don't put the client first, you can't work at Alpion. It's as easy as that. I mean, it's client comes first, right? We need to make sure that we respect their needs and their wishes first, before my own. Right, so it's kind of like what I was saying before, right? If you have three, and you can pick two, one has to budge. And so, if it's between, the three of those things, like Alpion needs to make sure that the client is the one that's prioritized.
Okay. Now, you've been in finance for such a long time. What is money to you personally? What does money mean to Skylar?
My goal is not to have to maximize money, right? I think, a lot of people in life, they think about, the CEO of a bank, and they think, well, that guy's got so much money, and, their goal is to maximize. That's not my goal. I appreciate money and what it can do, and, it does open up some opportunities, but, I think, for me, what's really important is that I have enough money to live a stable life, for me and my family. Right? That is what's most important for me. I'll give an example. my son, this was a couple months ago, but his favorite thing was a swing, right? The swing, like you go back and forth on the swing. And, that was his favorite thing. He wanted to go on the swing all the time, right? So I had to find a way to get him a swing. But if you're going to get him a swing, you need a little backyard. And having a little backyard it costs something, right? And so, again, the money that I do have, it goes towards these kinds of things, right? Where I can see my son swing and be happy, right? And so but you need the backyard, right? And so thinking around how all of these things happen, that's where I think about my money.
What's next for Alpian? Like, what's next for the next 3 months? And also for you personally, naturally, because it seemed to be so interlinked, right? I think it kind of can't be disconnected. But the next 3 months, 6 months.
Yeah, I mean, look, for Alpian, so we got our provisional license that needs to enter into full force, which we're working on doing all of the different steps that we need to take in order for that to happen. Once it enters into full force, we can launch, right? And that's going to be very exciting. And so we'll launch internally at first, because we want to make sure that, again, it's one thing when you've built everything, but you can't run it, right? We can simulate and we can test, but you're not actually running it in production. And so, over the next 3 months, we're going to launch internally, right? To make sure that everything, all the I's are dotted and all the T's are crossed, everything's working seamlessly. And then we'll start to shift it outwards. There's a lot of work that's going on the brand side, right? Sharing with people who is Alpian, right? That is a huge step, because if they don't know who we are, why would they even consider us, right? They need to know who we are. What do we stand for? How are we different, right? And so that's going to be a huge part over the next, maybe not, definitely 3 months, but even 3 months and beyond. So launching the service internally, starting to build that notion of who Alpian is in the minds of the Swiss population, that's key for us. And then getting our operations fine-tuned and making sure that when we launch it to the public, that they love it, right? And that everything is working as they expected. So,
which would be very interesting, because everybody at Alpian gets to try it first.
Yeah.
Being the bank's own client, right? And
absolutely.
That will bring the unvanished truth around client centricity. At least it has been tried on the employees before.
Yeah, I mean, look, if they see something that needs to improve, because it's their bank, we can improve it, right? So they live what they've built, right? And that's a very exciting prospect.
Yeah. Roman has asked me that I should ask you a very personal question, because he loves that question, so I'm going to ask it now, okay. Which is, if you were to look a couple of years back, let's say, because, for me it would be probably 20 or 25, but let's say 10 years back, what would you have wished to have done differently, or what would you have told your younger self, looking back from where you are today?
I think if we go back 20 years, it's probably when I started investing. I've been investing for quite some time, and just in the theme of Alpian, because again, there's many different ways you can answer this. But I think in the theme of what I do today, it's really around investment, right? And the way that I invested when I started. Right, it was a very irrational way to invest. I thought I knew everything, right? I was a young guy and I was like, I know everything. I read this article and it said this stock was the best, and so it's great. And so I invested into single stocks, and that was a disaster, right? When I started, I did not do well, right? And it's not that, I didn't try, and it's not that, I didn't understand, what it is to invest, but it was that I didn't understand how everything works, right? And so if I could go back today, 20 years ago, I would probably try and instill, the kind of principles that it takes, because it's not just about investing. These principles carry across life, which is patience, right? patience is extremely important. Patience with investing, but patience with everything. It's been very important for me to learn that. Due diligence, right? So understanding what it is that you're doing, truly understanding, not reading one article, but doing before you invest. I mean, investing is such a powerful thing if you know what you're doing. And so not overestimating, right, what you're able to do, but doing the real due diligence to understand what it is to invest. And I think that applies across many things in life, right? Whether you're buying a new shoe, right, or you're buying a new computer, or you're choosing who to spend your life with. It's very important to understand beforehand, how it works. And I think that journey of investing has helped me learn the importance of these different things. And it's helped me make decisions that have made me very happy and made me have a great life. And so, again, when I started investing, I did it in an irrational way. I didn't have the right people, to help me do it. But if I could go back in time, I would instill some of those principles, which would, one, I guess if I had done a better job 20 years ago, my investments would have done a lot better. But I'd say about 10 years ago, that's when that kind of shift happened, right? And both from the investment side, where I started to learn, like, what it is to be a successful investor, and that those principles have transitioned into every part of my life. You can see how it is. I can see how it has drastically helped me not only become a better investor and have more financial wealth, but be a better person.
Which is a beautiful thing to say, and nobody believes when you teach it in financial seminars like me. It transpires to every aspect of life. I mean, people say they boost their confidence once they understood some of these principles. Alpian has this statement around wealth beyond money. What does that mean for you personally?
Yeah, I mean, I touched on it a bit earlier, but again, wealth beyond money, it's something that, Roman and I, we kind of came up with together. And it's not, it was since the beginning of Alpian, but we came up with the term wealth beyond money a bit later on. It was really the spirit of, like, who is Alpian? And then that turned into wealth beyond money. And wealth beyond money, basically, it's, when you have a bank account, obviously when most people think about banks, they think about the money in their bank account, they think about all the stress that comes with that money, the bills they have to pay, and all this kind of stuff. And wealth beyond money for us is like when our clients, when they see their wealth, their financial wealth, instead of thinking about all the stress, there are stresses with wealth, but we want them also to think about what's possible. Right? What can that wealth empower them to do? And to each person, they have their own definition of what that wealth beyond money is. Right? So there's the financial wealth, but then there's the wealth beyond money, which is your wealth in your life. Right? And each person's got their own definition of that. And I think, for me, again, a lot of it comes back to family, making sure that, my family is my wealth beyond money. That's really where I spend, when I'm not at Alpian, I'm spending it with my family, right? I mean, it's amazing, because I'm sure the same thing happened to you. The day before you have a child and the day after, your life totally changes. It's totally, totally different. And your priorities change, right? The way you work, the way you act, it totally changes. How you think. I'm sure people, if they're looking at me throughout the day, they'll just see me smile randomly, and it's because I'm thinking about something funny my son did, right? Or my wife sent me a video, of my son doing something funny, right? And that is, when I'm not at Alpian, that is what I'm doing, right? It's just spending time with my wife and my son, and soon my daughter, and that's super exciting. So I would say that they're my wealth beyond money. Spending time with them, making them happy, going to walk every Saturday, a 2-hour walk with my son through Geneva, where I just get to spend time with him and do whatever we want. And that's, that time is very important to me.
Yeah, which is absolutely beautiful. And yes, you are absolutely right. When I was a lot younger and was working at the big bank, my boss, and I was actually pregnant, my boss said, yeah, you should invest now. And I'm like, why? He's like, well, if you haven't already, invest now, because once you have the child, your worldview will change. And I thought, what is he telling me, right? And yes, it is absolutely true. It makes you see the world in a different perspective, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
And all the inspiration.